All right. Well, welcome to our Pick the Brain podcast. I'm Dr. Caleb Frankel. I am an ER vet by trade and founder of Instinct. And we're starting this new project because over the years of building Instinct, we've been really fortunate to get to learn from what I would call some of the best and brightest hospital leaders in our field. They tend to gravitate towards Instinct tools, so we're lucky. And so we thought we'd try something new, this podcast, and the goal is to share some learning for the audience on all things hospital operations, leadership, industry trends, ownership, and innovative technology. So today, we are excited to have a colleague and friend, Dr. Jen Welser, who got her start as a veterinary specialist. Dr. Welser is an ophthalmologist. I believe you started your career at the very prestigious Angel Memorial, now called MSPCA Angel in Boston. But in the past decade plus, Jen, you have been a hospital leader and an executive, including being one of the early leaders of the Blue Pearl Network, which did a lot of pioneering of specialty medicine in our industry. And then you became the chief medical officer for all of Mars for several years. So we are excited to talk today because you have started something new and exciting. You're now the president of a newer specialty and emergency network called Arista Advanced Pet Care, which is part of the CityVet organization, where you also serve as chief strategy officer. So thank you for joining Pick the Brain, Jen.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, an honor.
Yeah, well, before we start, I want to just say we do our homework here. And one thing we found, and you can tell me if this is true or not, but Arista may be the only company I know of where one of the values on the website is always pick up the poop, which I just love.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yes.
Can you tell me if that's true? That's my first question.
Yes, it is. It is very true. And it resonates with everybody.
I love it. If you're not in our industry, you don't know, but if you are, you know. Okay, well, my first real question to pick your brain on is actually about you. I think you're a really cool example of a clinician becoming a hospital leader and at many really interesting levels. So many veterinarians who are emerging leaders might be wondering, how did you go from practitioner, specialist, to the CMO of a huge organization, Mars, to starting the president of a new specialty group? So I'd love to hear that journey.
Yeah, I wish I had a really concise answer for it, but I think some of the skills that apply to being a really good clinician and enjoying this profession, or even being drawn to the profession, translate more to leadership than I think sometimes veterinarians can see or give themselves credit for. We're learners, we're curious. We like to sort of, always be, assessing, triaging our day or triaging our life. I mean, I think there's a lot of skills that are inherent already in veterinarians that can be translated. And I think I just was always like, oh, I didn't see it in myself, by the way. Sometimes some of these steps that I've taken, I have very grateful that I had people that were, mentors and really looking out for me. But I think in the end, it's because I was always just curious and learning and wanting to sort of see where this cool career could take me.
Love it. That's great. Okay, now I want to talk to you about Arista. So can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are trying to do and maybe why you feel like it's different than what's out there?
Yeah, for sure. So I, first of all, I got introduced to the CityVet model, and it's a shared ownership model for general practice. It's been around for about 25 years and on much more of a growth trajectory for these last, call it 5 years. But it was a really interesting model that kind of piqued my interest when I was kind of looking for my next chapter. And there are a couple people that I'd worked with previously in my life. And so the idea that you have true shared ownership. So, if someone is for the Arista side, if someone's a 10% owner, then it means they put up 10% of the money to build a hospital. That true shared ownership model is different, I think, because it's within, the four walls of this person's hospital or this team's hospital. And so some of the hard decisions, like they land at your feet. And so you don't get to sort of turn around and blame somebody else. Some of the great successes and the joys and the trials and tribulations that come with it also land at your feet. So you really get to kind of own, the whole, kit and caboodle, if you will. So I think that's why it's different. And I feel like, you know, could someone go get a loan and go open a hospital? Sure, of course they could. Money is expensive today,
Yeah.
and it's very hard. I mean, the all of the bits and pieces that go into opening a hospital and taking care of people and being compliant. I mean, like there's so much stuff that is so hard
Yeah.
that having it be the shared ownership is trying to say, really, there's this whole support behind you for what does it mean to be an owner and own a hospital, and you are the true owner. So you do have to take your hats on and off. Like, now I'm a clinician, now I'm an owner, now I'm a clinician, now I'm a partner with my other owner partners. So it asks a lot, but it is differentiating, I think, in that way.
It sounds so obvious, but I'll tell a story about, me and my journey at Instinct. I almost didn't start this company. And one of the silly reasons I think will resonate with many veterinarians, which is like, I knew this problem needed better solutions. I knew veterinarians should be involved. I knew I was entrepreneurial and could figure stuff out. But I was like, how do you figure out payroll for a team? This is like, back in the early entrepreneur days of Caleb, like the little things around compliance. I was like, I can't do any of that. And I had great advisors around me who were like, I want to reach through the computer and slap you. Anybody can figure that out. We're going to help you. But this is a great, example of many clinicians who go to school with no business training, can be entrepreneurs, can be great entrepreneurs, but with the support of something like this, it makes the barrier to entry so much lower.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I do think sometimes veterinarians, you can be your own worst enemy when, as you're a clinician trying to figure out being a good clinician, you feel like I have to own all of this. I have to make sure that, if there are 10 things on my differential list, I tell myself there should be 15.
Yep.
And so you just bear this whole responsibility, and you're like, actually, there are always resources around you. There are always people to help you. And like, I wouldn't know the first thing about payroll other than it's really important. You don't want to mess it up. So find people who do a really good job at payroll.
Yep.
And then there you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. Well, now I want to pivot to some of the innovative things you're doing. And mostly, if you're okay, I want to hear a little bit about this idea of the care navigator that you and I have talked about. I think it's a really interesting concept. And I think it's one of the more innovative things that you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting. I think differentiating for Arista, it's pretty equal on how much of this is because we have a shared ownership model and we're bringing, call it 4 to 6 multi-specialty ER vets together as owners, and the care navigation model. Because that kind of, for me, came from, appreciating my previous role in a global lens over veterinary hospitals and clinics across, the planet, realizing it doesn't matter where you are, veterinarians are the same and the problems are the same. And why do we keep allowing for some of these problems to be there? So the care navigation model is kind of like an umbrella, really, to sort of say, what operationally should we be changing to solve pain points? And for sure, it's to solve pain points. It's not to have a fancy little like care navigation trademark it. It's very much, if it doesn't solve a pain point, then don't bother. But I started with like, we've got 3 distinct audiences. You have the pet owner. We're all here to do best by people and pets. From the specialty ER side, then the general practitioner as the core to the pet family and their life. And so we need to view ourselves as this advanced care extension. But there are 3 different sort of audiences feeling the pain points. And so how do we figure out what's your biggest one, what's your biggest one, what's your biggest one, and solve those legitimately? And in most of it is kind of unsurprisingly in a very tech forward way that clears out all of the stuff that's time consuming, so that the actual people connection is much more valuable, and the time is spent without some of the classic frustrations and the classic sort of, in veterinarians, you feel like you spend time covering up for the fact that you don't have the medical records you need, and you're trying to just kind of fudge it and keep going. Like that you've already missed if that's what you're doing. So care navigation is to sort of, in a very tech forward way, how are we making sure that we are navigating any pet, any general practitioner, any specialty ER vet through whatever their role is in this ecosystem in a manner that is as efficient and frankly as rewarding and effective as possible.
Yeah, and in my understanding, it's you have your own tech team at Arista who basically have built an internal. It's more than a wiki. It's sort of like a layer of like employee navigation throughout their shift, throughout their work at Arista. And my understanding is you continue to iterate on it. It's not like a build and done. So what have you learned over the last year or two of launching this?
Things never go as quickly as you want them to go. Things are never go as smoothly as you want them to go. Human nature and change, and people do they want their patterned life so quickly?
Yeah.
And even though there's so much buy-in for why are we doing this, and that we're in it together, you just realize that if things aren't so immediately kind of known and understandable, then you kind of lose some people. So I think that the energy and the concept toward what we're doing has been amazing, and the learnings on like just how long it'll take to iterate, or just the version is like, we hadn't thought of that, that kind of situation, or we hadn't thought of that situation. And so it's that part has been harder. I think there's a section of it so far that we're nailing, to be honest, that is even better than I might have expected, for the sort of standard referral patient, client patient being sent over, and how we're managing that whole intake process has been a game changer. We've just got a lot of iterations for, once someone's in like the system, if you will, they've come to us. How are we supporting them, through their journey, or like a critical case transfer where we didn't have the care navigation pod sort of activated at the beginning. So there's lots to still iterate on, but it's fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Last question around that stuff. Where are you going with it? What's the hope, in 5-10 years you can share?
Yeah, honestly, I hope that it becomes just part of what veterinary medicine is, that it's not just an Arista differentiator, that it becomes so obvious the way we operationally change some of these things, that it's just, an expectation. I mean, maybe an example in human healthcare, it doesn't always work, but like nobody goes to a human healthcare appointment without having gone through a lot of, stuff before they show up. I
Yeah.
know that you can sometimes be like, oh, I did it, and nobody no one in this hospital clinic seems to know that I did it. You can't have that. But I do hope that there's a tweak to the way we, really interact with clients and general practitioners from the specialty ER side, that just becomes part of the delivery of care.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, cool. Well, this is a short form podcast, so that's it. But we have two wrap up questions I always ask. So the first one for you, which will be intriguing since you're an established leader in our space now. But what is one leadership lesson you maybe have learned the hard way over the years that have it's cost you time or money, or you've had to figure it out personally? I call it 2x4 advice. So sort of like help young up and coming leaders avoid those 2x4s every once in a while with this one.
Yeah, I wish I could say that this was going to be like, do this and ta-da, but because I still, it's always the same mistake, and I still do it. It always costs time. It always costs money. It's asking the right questions. There's figuring out how to ask the right questions. Ask the same question 3 different ways to make sure you are asking the right question. I mean, if anything ever does happen where you feel like, oh, how'd that happen? You go back and you dissect it, and you're like, I was not asking the right questions.
Yeah.
So that piece there's no magic bullet on it, but man, if you think you asked them, stop, ask again, ask different people, rephrase it. It applies to literally everything.
That's a great one. Okay, cool. And then what is one underrated tool or feature of your hospital that if you took this away, the Arista team would riot? Of course, besides maybe care navigation and instinct, but
For sure, instinct. I mean, obviously. Um,
obviously.
but actually, I think that's interesting, because if you'd asked me a year ago, it wouldn't have been the same answer. Because and there are holdouts to this, but I think the concept of the AI scribing, it just has to be part of the way these hospitals function. And even the people that weren't really aware that this
Yeah.
tool was playing a big role in their life, now if you took it away, I think they'd be like, "What, are you kidding me?" So, but that's pretty quick that
Yeah.
has changed. Again, there are some holdouts, but it really has. It's a game changing tool that people need for their be effective, be efficient. So it's awesome.
Awesome. Couldn't agree more. Well, that's it. Thank you for being on Pick the Brain. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Caleb. Happy to be here.